Hey, what's up, everybody? It's A. Millie for the Sip and Sip podcast, and tonight I have a very special guest. He is a living legend in the reggae and the Caribbean music market. I want you all to give it up for Mr. Edley Shine. Booyaka,
Yo,
booyaka,
respect to the peoples, respect to the whole podcast. You done know. So it's Sip and Sit podcast, right?
Yes, this
You know,
you know what,
I
Edley.
should have been sipping on some white Hennessy right now, but
Listen, hey, you could go get your white Hennessy. We're gonna I got my water. I've been drinking a little bit too much, from the 4th of July festivities.
right,
So
right.
I am really trying to sober up today.
Detox,
So I got
detox.
my water right here with me. So I'm sipping on that right now.
I
But
feel you
Edley
on
Shine, thank you so much for coming on the Sip and Sip podcast. I was trying to do some booyaka booyaka, something
that.
like Caribbean reggae,
Right.
welcoming in the vibes. And I just
Bless.
appreciate you for coming on, man. So how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, just getting the summer. The summer is rapidly approaching, and it's a lot of things in the pipeline, a lot of songs to be released, a lot of
Mm.
shows to go do. So I'm just, gearing up. I mean, we basically in the summertime program, and that's a big time for the Caribbean. All type of festivals, all type of
Oh
festivities.
yes.
So
Uh,
I'm just moving and shaking right now.
you just moving and shaking because you have been really doing your thing out here. You have a brand new single, and we're gonna talk about that. But
All right.
first, I want to get to know who Edley Shine is. Tell me about your journey as a Caribbean and reggae artist and how you got started.
So, well, I got started. I'm from Washington, D.C. I was born to two Jamaican parents that migrated to D.C. in the 70s. So, big up to Zigga, my pops, big up to my mom, Miss Hyacinth. And, just growing up in D.C. and having a Jamaican family. And then I was exposed to hip hop as well. So, I watched the ascension of hip hop from its beginnings to what it is today, the $1 billion industry. So,
Mm,
having those two ties and those two cultures, the American and the Jamaican, kind of forged the artists that you hear today. I was in the legendary 90s group Born Jamaicans. We had two albums. We was on
mm,
Billboard. We toured with Shabba Ranks, Maxi Priest, Buju Banton. We were amongst the elite of the reggae artists, during our tenure. And from there, I just been, after my group separated, I just been doing my solo thing independently. No label, no
mm.
management, no damagement, just me and self-reliance. And I've been lucky enough where the legacy that I left with the group and the music that I've been putting out still resonates with the world, and I'm still able to have a career.
And I love that, starting from the 90s, and look how music has evolved, especially with
Absolutely.
reggae and dancehall. And I do want to ask you, like, how was it with you coming up as a 90s artist? And what do you remember back then with your group? What were some of your biggest moments that you remember?
Um, some of the biggest moments was probably just meeting a lot of the artists that end up becoming megastars. Like I can recall one time us having a show in San Diego, and somebody knocks on we backstage in the Coliseum. Somebody knocks on the door and says, "My daughter want to meet you," and we like, "Okay, who's your daughter?" It's Destiny's Child. So it's Beyonce, Kelly, and the whole
Wow.
crew walks in. And the first thing Beyonce says is, "I love you guys. I love reggae. I want to make a reggae song one day." This is before she became who she is
Mhm.
today. But just moments like that, moments like going on tour with Shabba Rankin, going on tour with Patra, who just had a big moment on the BET Awards,
Mhm.
being a part of that class, it just and people always see me and say, "Hey, you're a legend. You're an innovator. What you guys
Mhm.
did hasn't really been duplicated in that format since then." So, I take it all and I humbly receive it, and I'm just glad that the work that I put in back then still resonates, and
Mm.
that's going to be my legacy. That's what my daughter's going to live to see her dad start from a teenager and growing up in the music, and then being his own man in the music.
Yes, and more so leaving that legacy and
Absolutely.
seeing the fruits of your labor from the 90s kind of inspire, those groups back then like Destiny's Child and so
Right.
many other artists. And when we talk about artists, we talk about music. We just celebrated Black Music Month and
Right.
also Caribbean Music
Music
Month.
month.
Why
Right.
do you think that both recognizing the month of June is very important for artists and especially Caribbean artists too?
I think, with the whole implementation of Juneteenth and what that means, and the Caribbean, which was the passageway to what happened with Juneteenth, I think they kind of just tied it all together. But definitely for the Caribbean as a whole, all the islands influence the world globally. And
Hmm.
everything that you see in music, basically, you know, the ancestry of Africa,
Hmm.
is the incubator of it, but it was
Hmm.
cultivated and made to what it is in the Caribbean. And
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
why you see, when you look at all these iterations of what hip hop, dancehall, and reggae became. Now you have the ascension of reggaeton, you have the ascension of Afro beats. All of these things, all of these seasonings and these spices that's in these music
Oh
comes
yes,
directly from the Caribbean, whether
yes.
the artists want to admit it or not.
I love how you said that the seasoning
Right,
and the spices
right.
too for today's music as well, because you see
Mhm.
like Burner Boy, you see so many reggae artists,
Right.
Afro soul artists, Afro beats, even Jamaican like Safari,
Mhm.
Spice, all of these flavors, they have influenced the culture with your group as well. That I
Right.
feel like Caribbean music is at the forefront. Reggae has always been like at the forefront. Now, with 50 years of hip hop, as we're celebrating this year, and it's a huge year for you, being an artist, being hip
Mhm.
hop, reggae, dancehall.
Mhm.
Who are some of your musical influences that kind of influenced you to be the artist that you are today?
Oh man, I have to take it back, and anybody probably 30 and under probably won't remember some of the people that I'm about to mention, but I
But I'm
got
gonna tell you, I'm 35, so I ain't 30
so
and under, so I
you might
probably
know
know.
some of the names I'm about to mention, but
Hmm.
direct influences on me, definitely Shinehead, Big
Yes,
Daddy Kane,
yes.
KRS-One, Super Cat, Shabba Rankin, Run DMC, the Fat Boys, Eric B. and Rakim, definitely Pete Rock and CL Smooth, and a host of everything from the 90s, because my teenage years was the 90s, so that kind of cultivated my musical direction,
Mhm,
listening to hip hop and listening to the reggae, which I
mhm,
listened to all my life.
mhm,
Like when I was younger, my uncles had a sound system in DC, so I used to see Gregory Isaac, and I used to see Dennis Brown, and all these legendary reggae artists that came through DC, whether to perform or my uncle
mm.
playing it on the sound system. So I'm just a melting pot of musical influences. But those
Yes.
those people that I mentioned are
Mhm.
most important to me.
How has your community in, being from the chocolate city, DC, the nation's
Absolutely.
capital, how did your community influence you to be like a better artist and represent for Washington, DC?
Well, I can definitely say, being from DC, DC is native sound is go-go. Chuck Brown and
Mm.
Soul Searchers, EU, doing the butt. That's the native sound of Black American DC. Now, as
Wow.
far as the Jamaican side of DC, my uncle owned the oldest sound system. It's called Emperor. And if you don't know what a sound system is, it's a mobile disco. It's
Mhm,
big speakers, it's the DJ turntables, and he can go set it up in any type of venue and play reggae music, play dancehall music. That's what they specialize in. So
mhm,
having those influences and my identity, a lot of that came from growing up in DC. And I grew up around a lot of Jamaicans. I also grew up around a lot of Africans. And
mm,
that's why I always laugh now when I see the Africans, and just how confident and how
mhm,
and how the swag has grown, because I know for a long time in DC, they kind of just blended in with the Caribbean crowd. There was really no identity for them
mhm,
until the past 5 years with the ascension of Wizkid, Burner, and
mhm, mhm.
likes. So
Mhm,
just growing up in DC, it gave me that multicultural sense of myself.
mhm,
That's why
mhm,
when the group came along, it was important that we let people identify because we didn't want people to get us mixed up and think we were straight Jamaican. No, we're born
mm.
Jamaicans,
Jamaican.
kids of
Mhm,
Jamaican descent. So that's
mhm,
where it
mhm,
came from. But I always rep my city, Washington, D.C., uptown.
mhm. Yes, Uptown Washington, D.C. What I like to call the Mecca, of course,
Mhm.
home to Howard University, and
Absolutely.
all some of those HBCUs that are in Washington,
Right.
D.C.
Morgan
Now,
State, the whole
of
lot,
course, Morgan State, the whole DMV.
the
I
whole
think you
DMV.
you had the whole DMV on lock back in the 90s. Now,
Absolutely.
we did talk about hip hop influences. So, what about your reggae and your dance hall influences? What
Right.
artists kind of influenced your sound as well?
I mean, definitely I would have to point to Shaba Rankin
Mm-hmm.
as the example because he showed me, I watched his whole come up, as you would say, from him just being an underground artist in Jamaica and him
Mm-hmm.
having 12 inches and 45s and watching those songs get played in New York, then get played in
Mm-hmm.
DC, then your North Carolina, your South Carolina, your Miami. And I watched his fan base grow. And then I watched him get a record deal, be signed as Epic Sony, and then he
Mm-hmm.
started blending with the R&B and the hip hop and just becoming a multi-platinum Grammy award winning artist. So he definitely showed me that hey, there's a lane that you can, there's
Mm-hmm.
a paved road that you can walk on
Mm-hmm.
and bring your style and your flavor. So
Mm-hmm.
but before the ascension of us born Jamaicans, there was no young representation of a group in
Mm-hmm.
dancehall and reggae like that. You had singers and you had, see, in Jamaica they call rappers DJs because they get on the mic and they DJ and
Oh
then
wow, I never knew that.
right. So I would be called the DJ and the other member of the group was the singer. But for
Wow.
Americans, I was the
Mhm.
rapper of the group. So
Wow.
with that, just paving that road and giving the Americans that weren't really into reggae at the time inroads. They like, hey, I like Born Jamaicans. I like their sound. Is there more Jamaican music like this? Then they would go on to discover all the other illustrious, great talent that's out there. Because before that, Jamaica was just Bob Marley and that was it. But then when Supercat, Shaba, Shinehead, and all these other artists started breaking
Mhm.
through to the mainstream, that's when reggae became an actual genre to the globe.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. And I would have to say reggae is like one of my top three favorite genres.
absolutely.
And growing up, in the South, you didn't hear a lot of reggae, but I would try to, play it. And I just love, the sound, the
Mhm.
just it kind of felt like a positive vibe, good vibes,
Right.
it's just something about reggae, dance hall music that just puts you like in this mood, and it's a positive
Right.
mood. And with today's music, R&B, even rap, so
Right.
many genres are influenced by the Caribbean culture.
Mhm. This
What
is true.
is your opinion of Caribbean culture being an influence in hip hop and R&B?
I mean, you have a lot of people that will argue the point, but
Mhm.
hip hop came from reggae and dancehall culture.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
there you have people that would argue the point and say, okay, this person, this blues singer, or this person was rapping on the radio, or
Mhm.
whatever the case may be. All right. So there were people putting poetry and putting words together.
Mhm.
But growing up in America, being of American descent, I never saw an American kid wear baggy jeans, wear gold rope, wear a gold chopper on their wrist, get on the mic and control a crowd. I saw
Mm.
Jamaicans do that first. And
Wow.
then as the time and Sugar Hill Gang and all these other people
Mhm.
started getting ascension and it became known as hip hop, that's when
Mhm.
I started to see my Jamaican imagery that I grew up with
Mhm.
being applied to the Black American experience. Like I can
Mhm.
remember going to school. I had an uncle who had dreads, and I used
Mhm.
to teased for my uncle because he had dreads. He said, "Your uncle
Mhm.
got snakes in his ear." Now dreads is embedded in hip hop culture. Like
Yes.
all your big
Yes.
rappers got dreads. Now you're going to tell me they were wearing that in the South back in the 50s or the 60s? Because I see people arguing online that hip hop doesn't come from Caribbean culture, but the swag, the
Mm-hmm.
imagery, the feeling, the
Mm-hmm.
two turntables and a
Mm-hmm.
microphone, that's Caribbean culture.
Wow.
So it's
Wow.
definitely it's the father for what is cool
Mm-hmm.
today, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
And you know what? I did not really realize that,
Mhm.
so many hip hop artists do wear, their dreads, of course,
Mhm.
but being that influenced by the Caribbean culture, never would have put two and two together.
Right.
Never did I ever put two and two together.
I could give you another example. When my family coming from Jamaica in the 70s always wore their clothes baggy.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started going to school, first grade, second grade, all the kids used to wear tight Jordache close up. And I would come with my extra baggy clothes and my big shirt because that's what I grew up around in Jamaicans. And I used to get teased like, oh, you borrowing your uncle clothes or your daddy clothes, what you broke. And then as I got into junior high and high school,
Mm-hmm.
everybody had baggy clothes.
So it was I think you kind of introduced it in Washington DC, and they
I
just
think
kind of took your
The
form.
Caribbean introduced it,
Yeah.
but it just didn't become part of fashion until hip hop started incorporating it. But they never said where they got it from. But I
Mm.
first saw Caribbean Rastas and
Mhm. Mhm.
Jamaicans and people from the Caribbean wearing baggy clothes first
Mhm.
before I ever seen an American
Mhm.
wearing baggy clothes.
Do you think the Caribbean culture and
Mhm.
the genre of music isn't as, you know, in the forefront as rap and R&B, or do you think it is growing,
Mhm.
but do you think it is not in the forefront of music a lot?
I mean, anything that's innovative and anything that's
Mhm.
a pioneer probably won't get his full props.
Mhm.
And I think, the Caribbean on the whole is looked at as a niche. It's looked at as summertime music. It's looked
Mhm.
at as a certain viable music. Our
Mhm.
biggest export as far as Caribbean music is Bob Marley, Shaggy,
Mhm.
and Sean Paul. I
Mhm.
would name
Mhm.
those top three. With that built the whole entire genre to have it looked globally as a viable
Mhm.
music for people to invest in. But I think the infrastructure of the Caribbean doesn't allow it to grow and cultivate kind of the way you might see Afro beats or reggaeton.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think that just got a lot to do with economic, with the country that it comes
Mhm.
from. Jamaica is
Mhm.
only small island, 3 million people. There's
Mhm.
billions of Latin people. There's billions of African people. So they have a built-in economy, whereas the Caribbean music doesn't have a real strong economy like that.
Mhm.
Besides the festivals
Yes.
and trying to be a part of the
Mhm.
global economy.
Mhm.
So it is what it is. It's just it's an economic thing at the end of the day.
Mhm. Mhm.
No one has really industrialized Caribbean music to be sold to the masses, as far as
Mm. I really agree with that. I feel
Mhm,
like even when you look at artists like Spice, I
mhm,
never really was listening to dance hall like that until, she came on the scene, and now I kind of listen to it with
mhm,
reggae, of course, by Marley, Shaggy, Sean Paul. It's so many other great Caribbean artists. But I do want to ask you this: where do you see the genre that you grew up in? You became in a group with. Where do
mhm.
you see that genre in the next 5 years of reggae and dancehall?
I think reggae will always be around because it's embedded in the
Mhm.
global psychology. Like,
Mhm.
I've seen me touring the world and going on all the continents. I've seen more statues, more museums, more representation of Bob Marley than I've seen of Tupac and Biggie
Mhm.
around the world. I should say,
Mhm.
as far as I've seen Bob Marley coffee shops, I've seen Bob Marley graffiti on the
Mhm.
walls in France.
Mhm.
So culture is embedded globally. What I think in the next 5 years, dancehall, which is the younger, more hip, fast-paced version of
Mhm.
reggae, will probably be underground in the next 5 years because the
Mm.
culture has shifted with dancehall. It's,
Mhm.
kids in Jamaica are no longer into murder she wrote, murder she.
Now that's back
They're
in my day. I love
they're not doing
listen,
that
Edley.
anymore. They're not
Listen.
doing that anymore. It's a more trap influence sound from
Uh-huh.
young kids, and
Mhm.
they're talking about darker themes. After the
Mhm.
pandemic, there was a
Mhm.
lot of mental health issues and a lot of things that went on in a lot of young people's mind. You see it in
Right.
America, what's
Yes.
happening. So
Yes.
imagine the Caribbean where they don't even have access to a lot of the things that American kids have.
Wow.
So they go within and they self-medicate with the
Mhm.
music and what's
Mm.
available for them to self-medicate. So you're
Mhm.
hearing that in the music of dancehall. And I don't,
Mhm.
you're getting a couple breakthroughs. Like I don't know if you're familiar with Skilly Bangs. That
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah.
he's an offshoot of that new thinking and that new wave of
Mhm.
dancehall coming from
Mhm.
Jamaica. Now, will
Mhm.
it resonate and become global and will they win Grammys off of it? That's yet to be seen. But
Mhm.
I never
Mhm.
count Jamaica out as far as their artists because they have the
Mhm.
most creative and they make the most music and they work
Mhm.
their work ethic is unprecedented.
It really
Foundation,
is.
one drop, easy skanking,
Mhm.
smoke your weed, reggae will always be viable and always be prevalent, and people going to go to the reggae festivals all over the world.
Yes.
It might not sell as much
Mhm.
as Afro beats and Latin
Mhm.
music and hip hop, but it will always be an influence
It
forever.
will. It will. And it's always a vibe. Even like you look at, the fashion.
Right.
So many Americans that go to so many festivals, more a lot of Caribbean festivals. Like I want to put on a Jamaican festival outfit and go out there and be naked or whatever.
Right.
I love that. I think it's just a beautiful thing and just the
Right.
culture, the history of the Caribbean islands and celebrating. I think it's just a wonderful thing. And I cannot wait until I, have a chance to experience that.
Absolutely. You should definitely go. Go to Jamaica.
Yes.
Go to Sumfest. Sumfest is coming up in 2 weeks. So you
Hmm.
probably missed out on this year, but next year, that's the biggest reggae show in Jamaica. And you have all the top acts. So you're going to see cultural reggae,
Hmm.
dancehall, old school, everything mixed into one. So
I wonder if they'll let me up on stage. I can grind, I can twirl my hips or something. I
hey,
can I can give what this Southern
we can
belle.
make
I
it
can give
happen.
a
I,
little bit of
I, I
Southern.
know a couple people, so we can make it happen.
Okay, we can make that happen, Edley. Now we can make that happen.
Make it
Now
happen.
I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about your new single called Billy,
Right.
and it is definitely a hit, a summertime hit.
Thank you.
And what was your inspiration with coming up with that name and
Mhm.
the creative process of really making this song?
All right. So Billy was a brainchild of myself and a producer by the name of Rose Summers. He lives in Jamaica. And
Mm,
I've always heard the slang. See, Billy in America means $1 billion.
right,
But a
right.
Billy in Jamaica is a stash spot. That's where like if your grandmother say, hey, go in the Billy and take out $20 so you
Hmm.
can go to school for lunch. So in the hook, I'm saying my money doesn't hold in my Billy. I got a thick girl on my bash dilly dilly. And I don't move like silly Billy. So if it's money, yo, I'm ready. Just swing it, give me. So a Billy is actually a stash. So the
Ah.
Jamaicans know what I'm talking about. But I knew that Billy would
Hmm.
resonate with the American crowd because they like, oh, all right, he's a billion.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
channel being a billionaire. So
yeah.
it just kind of worked. And then it has that vibey, trappy type of beat that's going on in the Caribbean right now. And it's doing very well for me. I think we just hit 100,000 streams on Spotify in a month. Hopefully they might send
Congratulations.
me a plaque for that. I don't know. But being independent and putting
Mhm,
out these bodies of work and
mhm,
having to push it and market it on my own is
mhm,
definitely a labor of love. And
mhm.
I'm just happy that there's an audience that's always willing to listen to the music that I put out. Because a lot
Yes.
of artists put out songs to a thunderous stud.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
I'm just
mhm.
happy that I have a fan base.
Yes, I mean, hey, you are an OG. You are a legend
Thank
in
you.
these streets. Now,
Thank you.
that of course we're gonna support you. You got your fan base, and I love the song Billy Billy Billy. I was like, okay, I really thought that you were talking about a billionaire, but
Yeah,
I knew like the patois. Like I was
yeah,
like, I ain't gonna lie, I was
yeah.
rolling my hips. I was feeling like a little Caribbean
No,
thing, a
for the
little.
for the women, it's the Billy. That's the Billy. When you put the money in there, that's the
But
Billy.
listen, here in America, we put that little $20, $100, we put it down, we take
That's
it out.
the that's your Billy.
Especially the old women, especially like your grandmas and stuff like that.
Exactly.
They keep they Billy right here.
There you go. So now you can spread the word and let all your friends know the Billy is the stash spot.
Billy is a stash spot, and I do, I wouldn't have never guessed that, and that's
Right.
why I love the culture.
Mhm.
I say I really think I'm a Caribbean ting. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm a little Caribbean ting, a little Southern ting.
I'll share with you that back in my time when I was touring
Mm-hmm,
North Carolina, South Carolina, the whole Southern Belt, Tennessee, Alabama, Jacksonville,
mm-hmm,
Orlando, that whole belt right there, which is now probably the big trap scene, was a big reggae market. Like
mm-hmm,
we used to just we would start in like New Hampshire and go down, go through Connecticut, go to New York, go to
mm-hmm.
DC, then go through the South and just be in the South for a month doing shows at all the different clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And they would love reggae everywhere I go in the South. Like
Yes.
they connect with the reggae. But I'm not really surprised because if you didn't know, reggae music is actually the incubation of it. A lot of the
Mm-hmm,
artists, including Bob Marley,
mm-hmm,
was influenced by jazz and blues.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
They used to redo all the different, Southern artists back in those days,
mm-hmm,
but do it with the reggae beat. And then
mm-hmm,
they
mm-hmm.
started writing their own music. So the South and the Caribbean have a big connection, not
Yes.
only through slavery and all that, but through music as well.
Through music and just like the good vibes.
Good vibe, that
I
southern
love
southern comfort.
Southern comfort, and of
Oh
course,
man,
I know Caribbean people. I know so many people from the Caribbean. I went to school with them,
right.
but it's something about Caribbean food that
Mhm.
just has me in the chokehold, especially Jamaican food. I love Jamaican food. Jerk chicken. Oh,
Oh man,
come on, Edley.
oh
Jerk
man,
chicken and real authentic Jamaican macaroni and cheese.
oh
Like,
my
come on,
god,
it's a Jamaican place where I live,
yeah.
and I have to at least go there once a month. I got to get my jerk chicken.
There you go.
I gotta get all of that. I got to get
There you
all of
go.
that because I do have to ask you some questions about your Jamaican heritage. But
Mm.
first, before that, any new projects that you got coming out for the rest of the year
Mhm.
that you want to spill a little tea on right here on the Sip and Sip podcast?
Well, I do have a new single that's dropping on the 14th. We getting the
Okay.
video together. I'm hoping to drop the video along with the song just to
Mm-hmm.
have some visuals for it. It's called Grow. And this is more like my vintage signature sound of hip hop and reggae. So look out for that. If you're not following me on social media, it's Edley Shine across the board. The Vivo is there. All the videos are there, all the visuals. Some of my visuals were shot in Jamaica, some in DC.
Mm-hmm.
And this new video, I actually shot it while I was on tour in Ecuador. So I got a lot
Wow.
of the sceneries and
Mm-hmm.
the things in Ecuador. That was my first time going there. Beautiful country,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful people, and I'm glad that I was able to capture it and have visuals there. So that's
Wow.
coming up. And I'm always working on music. I don't necessarily put out albums because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like in today's climate, you really
Mm-hmm.
gotta have like you really gotta have like a fury going on and
Mm-hmm.
a frenzy going on before some people will consume. People who like to consume singles and have things
Mm-hmm.
to different things to pick from right now. And I kind
Mm-hmm.
of see that with my market right now. It's very single driven.
Mm-hmm.
Albums, they do well depending on the artist, but I'm not
Mm-hmm.
really interested in just giving people 20 songs. I
Right.
don't even want to listen to 20 songs of
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just keep on spoon feeding and giving them, the good part
Yeah,
instead of
the good
throwing
part.
everything in one. Yeah.
The good part, and I cannot
Mhm.
wait to hear your new single Grow. and your new video to it. So, what inspires you to come up with that single called "Grow"?
So Grow was actually I wrote it. I wrote that song because people kept on coming up to me saying, "Yo, what happened to dancehall? Like,
Mm.
it's not like the '90s. People not dancing no more. People not. It's not feeling good. Like
Mm-hmm.
I get a better vibe right now from Afrobeats than I do the new dancehall." And I'm just letting people know that's not how I grow. You know, the culture and the things that are within the culture. You have to really look past the surface because the music industry will only give you what's viable on the surface that
Mm-hmm.
sells, which is come back to Jamaica, drinks
Mm-hmm.
with the palm tree in it. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of in the song, I'm kind of talking about how the culture shifted, the things that's
Mm-hmm.
changed, and what I don't like and what I would like to see
Mm-hmm.
happen. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a real lyrical, introspective song, but it has a dope beat,
Mm-hmm.
dope vibe, makes you want to light something up. And I'm
Okay.
excited. Everybody I play it for is like, yo, Edley, this is fire. This is gonna be your song for the summer. So I'm excited to put it out and see what the world says about that song, Grow. So we 2 weeks away.
Two
July
weeks.
July the 14th, Grow, the single and the video will be out.
And of course, you got a supporter here, and
Thank you.
I'm definitely going to listen to it. I every artist that I listen to, I create a playlist. So
Okay.
you are now on my Caribbean reggae, wine my hips like a little ting. You are
Thank
on
you.
my playlist, and I
Thank you.
cannot wait to hear your new song "Grow" dropping in 2 weeks. Now, who would be your ideal collaboration that you would want to collab with on a song? Who
Hmm.
would be like your ideal artist?
So this will be mainstream because I like a lot of underground stuff, but
Mm,
if it's somebody that's on the Billboard charts right now,
mm.
you know, I really like Doja Cat because I know that
Oh,
even
I
though
love Doja Cat. Yeah.
on the surface she's giving you pop, but I see that she's a hip hop aficionado, especially with
Hmm.
the last couple things that she's put out. I was
Hmm.
like, okay, Doja Cat is actually a underground rapper, but
Hmm.
she's manipulating and doing it to make the money so that she can really make the money she wants.
Hmm.
I wouldn't mind working with her. Of course, you know, I always aim for the top. I met her once in life. I would love to do a song with her, Beyonce. You know, I would put her on
Yes.
some straight hip hop reggae type vibes.
Oh, yes.
You know, I really like the new singer Friday, the guy with
Hmm.
that deep opera type of voice. I
Yeah.
like him. I will work with him. And then as far as hip hop, if I had my choice today, I probably would work with like Griselda, Benny the Butcher,
Hmm.
Conway. I don't know if you're familiar with Griselda, but I like that type of
I've
underground
heard of her before.
mainstream rappers.
Mm.
There's not really much of it that I vibe with like that where I would say, yeah, I would do a song with. Imagine me and Little Uzi Vert. He's gonna come on the mic and be like, I just want to rock, say something in Jamaican, and I'm like, this not gonna work.
Yeah,
I do
yeah.
like Tyler the Creator though. I do like
Oh,
Tyler.
he's dope. He's
Yes,
dope. And
he's
we're
dope.
gonna put it's already out there. So we
Yeah,
put it out there. So anybody that watches the Sip and Sip podcast with guest Edley Shine,
right.
y'all collab, hit him up, call him up.
I'm
OG
open to
legend.
collab with
He's
anyone.
available.
Right.
And if you ever need a background dancer now, Edley, you can hit me up. I'll be a Caribbean ting. I will. I will do that. I'll be back. Book. I
If
do
you
all
could
of
make it to DC, I'm hosting a
that.
party with Lala Anthony
Oh
and
wow.
my brother Jay Butter. We doing a '90s style reggae party here in DC on July the 23rd.
Oh
You
wow.
definitely could get your dance on.
I
So
could get my dance on with y'all, with
yeah,
La,
yeah.
everything, the whole Chocolate City
Big up
in
to
Washington D.C.
Newscaster. That's the promoter for that. So
Yes.
that's the next thing that's coming up. That's gonna be big, and we just bringing back that old school vibe. So I'm looking forward to that show.
I love that old that it's nothing like old school vibe. Even when you go in the clubs now, it's not a lot of reggae or Caribbean music that is played. It's more
Right.
of your mainstream, but I like the
Mhm.
90s. Like,
Yeah.
I love the song Everyone Falls in Love sometimes. Like
Santa Metro and
that
Devontae.
song right there, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, like I will turn up. That is one of my favorite songs. So
Classic song. Classic.
classic song. Now, when I used to go to the club, they would play that, but of course, times have changed. They
Yeah.
don't play those old records anymore,
Right.
and that's
Right.
to me. I'm like, you got to go back to the classics. Yeah, you
Right.
can keep the new school, but you got to go back to the classics.
Well, I'm hearing whispers that there's going to be a big 90s Caribbean tour that's going to happen in the US. And I know definitely if that
Oh,
happens, it's going to come through Alabama. So I'll
oh
keep
yes, and I know we're gonna see you on that tour.
absolutely. They
We're
they
gonna see
they
you on that
hollering at
tour.
me. They trying to put it together. So hopefully they get some of my classmates from the 90s and we just go out
Yes.
there. The BET Awards was a big thing because a lot of my friends, Mad Lion, Patra,
Mm-hmm.
Little Vicious, even
Mm-hmm.
Spice, I never met
Yes.
the other two guys, Dexter Dapiskang, but just to see
Mm-hmm.
that Caribbean representation
Yes, that
lets
was
you know
like
that it's
my
time.
favorite, probably my favorite part of the night when Busta
Right,
Rhymes closed it out. And then
right,
there was just so many intricate, so many people, and especially like the
mhm,
Caribbean artists,
right,
Skilly Bang, like
right.
Spice, like everybody. And it just, I mean, I was up in my room, like, yeah, like it just
Absolutely.
was a different vibe, and you could see everybody out of their seats. They were just
Right,
rocking, they were just jamming. So I can only imagine
right.
the festivals, the 90s tour of Caribbean artists with you on there coming through Alabama, the South. Oh, it's gonna
Right.
be major.
It's gonna be lit. So I'm
It's
looking
going to
forward
be
to that.
lit.
I'm gonna keep it in my prayers that the promoter guys put it together, get the
Yes.
sponsorship, and we hit the road.
Yes. And promoter guards, if y'all are watching this podcast, make
Mhm.
sure you hit up Edley, man. Like, what's up? Put me on
I'm
there too. I
active.
can be a
I'm
backup
outside.
dancer. I could be a backup dancer. Now, Edley, before we close out this interview, you know what? I have always wanted to know and learn a little patois. So can
Right.
you teach me a little patois?
All right. All right. So you can say, yo, it's the Sip on Sit podcast. Everything govern. So it's the Sip on Sit podcast. Everything govern.
Okay.
So then you say, it's the Sip on Sit podcast. Everything govern.
It's the Sip and Sit podcast. Everything governed. Blah, 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 blah.
You are
Okay,
now
okay.
an honorary Jamaican.
Oh, my honor. Yeah, I am an honorary Jamaican right now. You know what, going? A Millie here. So I am an honorary Jamaican. I
Mhm.
need to learn a little bit more now, Edley. I might have to contact you if I need a
Uh,
little cursing out to somebody.
all right,
And
I'm here.
I just might need you to be. I need a little word or two what I can put in there. Something for patois.
All right, no problem.
Yes, Edley, I appreciate you so much for coming on this podcast. And before
Thanks
we
for
end,
having me.
of course, and you know what? You family now, so you are more than welcome to come back anytime on the Sip and Sip podcast. Because
Respect,
we're
man.
gonna do this. And I bet you I'll learn me some patois, a little bit more. And you gonna give me a
Just go
test when
spend
you come back
2 weeks
on.
in Jamaica, man. You'll be a full-fledged Jamaican in the two
I'll be a
weeks.
full-fledged Jamaican. 2 weeks in Jamaica with my red stripe.
Yep,
Yes.
you'll
Yeah,
be good.
that's all I want. That's all I want is a red stripe.
Right,
And then I'm good.
plenty of that there.
Yes. So, Edley, please drop all of your social media handles and your website so we can check in with you, follow you, see what's going on, and of
All right.
course, stream all of your music.
All right. Well, the website is www.edleyshine.com. The Instagram is edleyshine_official. And everything else is just plain Edley Shine. The YouTube, the TikTok, the Vivo, the Facebook. My Facebook is like my barbershop. That's where
Mhm.
I get into it and have musical debates with random people. So if you want to chop it up, you throw a jab, I throw a jab, and we just be jabbing on Facebook. That's where you can find me a lot. So it's everything Edley Shine. And I really appreciate you having me tonight. It was a great conversation.
It was.
To all the fans of the podcast, you don't know.
Yes.
Had a big voice.
Hey, there you have it, y'all. Make sure you go stream Edley's music, follow him and support him, and be on the lookout. He has so many things coming up, especially his new single called Grow, dropping on July 14th. And as always, I love you. I appreciate you. Make sure you hit like, comment, and subscribe to this podcast because it really helps the channel. So please go ahead and really support your girl on this journey. And as always, we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.
Respect.